nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down. My brothers on the ground, I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Hello everybody, good evening, welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast, brought to you by the Scottish Rugby Blog. I am Cammy Black as always, and joining me this evening we have the two-headed beast, Iain Ander here, we have John Anderson. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Cammy.
And we have Iain here. I've got a moth, sorry Iain, there's a moth flying around my room. At some point I'm going to catch it. It was all the way through the intro, I thought I'm like, it's like Karate Kid, you know when he gets the chopsticks?
Oh, chopsticks for the fly.
Yeah, you see me doing that, I'm going to try and...
Is it not just the greatest feeling in the world when you eventually like you a fly and you think you're like some sort of ninja, and then you like let it, you like think you've got it, but then you open your hands and there's nothing there.
Well, we're probably in for the next hour and a half at least, which is how long we're normally on for. So I've got an hour and a half to try and catch this moth. we'll celebrate in style when I do.
Keep us posted, mate. Keep us posted.
Was it maybe 2 years ago you had a spider in the room that had to be dealt with?
I did, yeah. This is before the days of live podcasting where I had to. I've still got the audio of that somewhere of me screaming silently. I think it was you and.
Sandy, maybe?
You and Sandy, and I had to kind of just say, I'm going to have to leave you. It was a huge thing. The size of my fist just crawled out from underneath the piece of furniture, and I had to go and deal with it. Thing is, I threw a book on it and thought that'll do it for the rest of the podcast. And then I think I then had to leave you again because it crawled out from underneath the book.
Just lifted the book up. Gorilla pressed the book out the way and threw it at you.
Actually, it's Skynet have sent Terminator spiders through time to sort out Cammy.
Must be an English spider. I can't remember what game we were talking about.
It was a long time ago.
Anyway.
And that spider's surely dead now.
Spiders to one side, we're definitely dead by the time I'd finished with it. I made doubly sure of that. Spiders to one side for a minute. You, if you're watching us live this evening, we're on YouTube and Twitter and Twitch. We're the only rugby podcast still on Twitch, I think. So hello to everybody listening on there. We are also broadcasting on our super secret social media group, which you can join if you sign up for our Patreon, which is if you go to patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast for £3 a month. You get access to our super secret social media group where you can make friends over Dungeons and Dragons and such like, and other sorts of weird chats that go on in there. It's lovely to see our listeners bonding over their shared interests. You also get access to exclusive episodes and ad-free versions of the podcast. If you want to listen to the podcast generally and you don't want to sign up to it, you can listen to us on Spotify, Acast and Apple Podcasts, wherever else you can get your podcasts. We are also sponsored by manscaped.com, and if you're watching this, you can see it going along the bottom. If you go to manscaped.com/Scottish Rugby or manscaped.com and enter in the code SRP, you will get 20% off plus free shipping on some fantastic male grooming products, such as the clippers for your downstairs areas, nose hair trimmers, ointments for your balls, which, as we've established, the ointments can also be very good for relieving blisters if you're a guitar player as well. So we've all had a crack at them. I've not had a crack with it. I'll be honest, full disclosure, I've done the nose trimmers. I've still not let loose downstairs.
I may have nicked myself again yesterday.
Manscaped is not responsible.
Yeah.
I think if you're not following the manual correctly, Iain,
well,
can't be held liable.
See, I actually found the wee sort of manual one. I took loads of cardboard to the dump and shit yesterday. I swore, sorry. And it says like you should do it in one particular direction, and that's the direction I was doing it in, and I've still managed to nick myself just above.
Do you know, it's easy to do it because the quality of the blade, it is an incredibly sharp blade, and it pumps out a good RPM on it. So, yeah, the really good quality products. If you don't follow the instructions, you will chop your downstairs off. So,
and when they sent us a new blade, I used it up here. So if you're watching this, you can see my hideously shaved head. I'll just...
That's beautifully shaved. Hideously, I mean, hideous, you mean your own appearance. I mean, it's actually beautifully shaved. It's done a fucking job on it, Iain.
It's my own wretchedness that's the issue. Because the last time I shaved my head in lockdown was with a beard trimmer. And that took like 2 hours.
It takes a good while. I cracked and invested in some proper hair trimmers for me and the lad in the end. And the difference is, it's massive.
When I started looking, like all the sort of mid-range price ones were all sold out. And I was like, there's no way I'm paying 200. Well, in my foolishness, I thought there's no way I'm paying like 90 quid for a pair of hair clippers. The barbers will be open shortly, won't they?
I've gone beyond the point now where I can get away with trimming it myself. I'm going to have to wait for the hairdressers to open. It's too big now. There's too much of a mess.
There was someone in my work went down the route of having really, really put some effort into trimming their hair properly first time round. They've now went with it. It's too long and out of control, so they're just picking bits and just chopping now. And it's like, just going for like a mad style of just. I think it's probably indicative of maybe losing it in lockdown 17 or whatever we're in now.
Did you see the photo of Rob Harley celebrating after the game?
No.
Yes.
Rob Harley looks like all of us. Rob Harley looks like he's had a hard lockdown. full dad bod. And I mean, but what an athlete he is with it.
Yeah.
Full dad bod, massive mop of hair and huge ginger beard.
Good old Rob
He's
Harley.
the man we all aspire to be.
Yeah. Yes, go to manscaped.com/Scottish Rugby. You get 20% off plus free shipping. Plus, you help us a little bit as well because we are sponsored by them. And I should mention that is an advert. Be very clear. #ad.
Even though Iain was doing his best to make it not seem like an advert.
Oh no, it's my own stupidity. It's my own stupidness.
Anyway, we're going to move. Let's move off the male grooming. We'll move on to some rugby. What should we do first? Should we do the Women's Six Nations first? Because and then we can talk about Scotland, France in a minute. There's not been much else in the way of news. I don't think elsewhere. No one signed anywhere. I think Charlie Shield and Henry Purgus have signed contract extensions, which means Finlay Christie's probably still staying in New Zealand for a while longer. But they're going to be behind Ben Vellacott anyway now, aren't they?
Most likely. Was Groom? That's it. Nick Groom. I think he's away. He'll be away.
Is he away? Is he?
He'll be away at the end of the season. I think I saw that on Jamie Lyle's Twitter. Hopefully the train will toot him on, give him a goodbye toot.
They should give him a lifetime of free travel on ScotRail trains.
It's probably bigger than his Edinburgh contract, to be fair. Those things are bloody expensive.
ScotRail Platinum Pass.
So I don't think there's been much else in the way of actual proper signings. But this weekend, the Women's Six Nations kicks off. I think we said last week it's delayed because of the coronavirus, obviously. So Scotland versus England this weekend. Then Scotland play Italy the weekend after. And then the teams from there's two pools of teams will play their respective side in the other pool. So I think Scotland are in Pool A with England and Italy. And then you've got France, Wales, and Ireland in the other pool. So Scotland will play whoever is their equally placed team to sort out some sort of final ranking place. So it's down in Doncaster this weekend. We've no team announcement yet. We have, though, if you are on our super secret Facebook group, we are doing a women's Fantasy Six Nations, which they set up on the official site. So that'll be good fun. It's a hard one with Scotland women. Iain, I'll start with you. They've not, aside from those players, and there are a handful of players within the squad who are playing in the Premier 15s, and a few of them have kind of been on the bench, had starts since that started. But the rest of the team are essentially, amateurs within Scotland who haven't kicked a ball in anger since the game against France, which was October, November time.
So long ago. The famous draw. When was it? November? I can't remember.
It's in November.
All the months are melded into the one.
There are no years anymore.
It's still 2020.
The 18th month of 2020 was a bad one.
Yes. So obviously, the cohesion, but it's going to be the same for apart from England, because they're all fully they all fully pro still.
Mostly, I think.
Yeah. So maybe there's going to be a lack of cohesion. Obviously, England are one of the best, if not the best team in the world. So it's going to be very tough. But as the women showed against France, if they have a good day and England have an off day, anything could happen. But obviously, it's going to be extremely tough to go down there with with a team that's not been able to play much together for considerable time.
Yeah, I was reading, John, on the offside line. I had an interview with Rachel Malcolm today, talking about the shift in mindset the Scotland women have had, and I think we kind of saw that. And it was October. I've double checked now. That game in October. What she was saying today is, Scotland women have now gone out to play their own game and not worry about the opposition. It's not about keeping the score down. It's a different kind of mindset. They know that if they go and play their game, they can give anybody a game. I think it's quite interesting to hear that, because it seems like there's more of a plan, and that almost try to emulate the men in finding the Scottish way of playing.
Yeah, and I think that's really important for thinking about the women's game and thinking about how it's promoted in Scotland. Finding that way of playing is really, and doing that quite early. And obviously, the Scottish women's team's been playing internationals for many, many, many years, but really we've had a focus on women's rugby properly, like mainstream focus, for maybe 5-6 years, kind of most, really. And you're starting to see kind of finding that style is then developing. Like, girls are watching rugby and watching people playing a game that they want to play. And the earlier we can identify that kind of Scottish style and really kind of start to be competitive with it is really, really important. So it's great to hear that mindset change, and it's great to it feels very professional, actually. And it's probably feeding through from having a number of fully professional players in the squad or around the squad, and that kind of filters back through to the rest of the kind of setup. So, no, really positive.
Yeah, I think the other thing is obviously we talked about this a couple of weeks ago with Jade Kunkel announcing that she's off to be trained to be a firefighter in London. There was a stat I read it's on Rugby World. I pulled the stat out. It said last year and she made 77 carries, which is more than any other player. Now, Scotland only played 3 matches, and as a comparison, CJ Stander was a top carrier in the 2020 Six Nations with 78 carries across 5 games. So it's an average. She was making an average of 25 carries a game, which, I mean, Scotland are really. I mean, I know Rachel Morgan was saying that obviously it's a time for other women to step up and play their part, and find players that can fill that gap. But it is going to be a miss, Iain.
Absolutely. She was the first woman to break the glass ceiling for Scotland players by being the first Scottish professional, and she's such a vital cog in that machine, as we can see by the amount of carries she makes. And as well, sometimes the Scotland scrum can struggle, and she's been so good at picking it up from the base and dealing with things. She was fighting fires there. Now she's doing it professionally. Hey, zinger. But this thing, it gives someone an opportunity to step up. Whenever you're sitting on press conferences, one of Gregor Townsend's most commonly used words is opportunity. So yeah, we'll need to see who's teams announced tomorrow, I think at midday. And so we'll see who fills in that spot.
Yeah. I think that it'll be interesting to see what they've worked on after the France game. Because you and I talked about that after the game, Iain, and we were saying that the one hindrance was at scrum half. They had Mary McDonald in, and a lot of the passes were going quite high. It was almost like the kind of issue we saw with Scott Steele against Italy, where it's hard to get momentum when you're catching balls in the air. And it almost felt like there was a chance for Scotland to win that game. I think if the passes were a little bit more to hand and a bit more of a quick delivery from the base of the ruck, there was definitely a lot of structure in attack and a lot of things to work on.
Yeah, and there is the Scotland women's team. They do play quite a similar style to the men's game. It's quite fast. People like Hannah Smith, brilliant sort of centre, plays a sort of Hugh Jones style fashion. And then you've got a friend of the pod and guest speaker Rona Lloyd and Chloe Rowley. I can't remember the game that particularly well, but there was. It's just one of these things again. It's just about the players playing, getting more time together at the highest level, and getting exposed to better teams, and then upping their own game to counter that.
Yeah. So we'll the game's on iPlayer at the weekend, and so presumably available afterwards. I think that's right. Iain, you look puzzled, like I was saying.
I'm just thinking, well, could they not just stick it on BBC Two or something? Could they not stick it on one of the big channels?
You would have thought so. They've done that before with stuff.
Yeah, or even BBC Scotland channel. I think it's. I thought maybe having it not running concurrently with the men's game might be a good thing, because sometimes you get a bit of viewer fatigue, or you've got other stuff to do. You can't sort of go right. You have to make a sacrifice somewhere and take stuff to the dump, for example. But no, I think it should have been, if they put it on a proper channel, they could have attracted more viewers. And because a lot of people, haven't been exposed to women's rugby yet, and it's for people who thought, say, the Autumn Nations Cup games were boring, it's a bit faster, obviously, because it's not all just mass folk bashing into each other. It is a bit of a faster game and a wee bit more exciting. And
there's less reliance on kicking as well, because there's not that kind of game that Scotland are playing at the minute, booting it 500 yards down the field, try to stretch defences, isn't there? There's a lot more running in it.
On you go, John. I've chat plots.
I was enjoying your chat, mate. Sorry. There is. It's definitely it's a faster game. It's probably more, the skill levels involved, actually, like the ball skills are probably, like, I would almost say higher than the male game in some ways, because there isn't that reliance on kicking for territory. There isn't that reliance necessarily on the set piece as much, which makes for a better game. So I would highly recommend anybody that's watching tonight or listening back to this who hasn't as yet dabbled in watching any of the women's games, do so. You will find yourself watching a very entertaining game of rugby.
I'm just looking at this. So the kickoff for England versus Scotland is 3:00 on Saturday. Now, at on the same time, BBC Two is Death on the Nile, the 1978 version of Death on the Nile, followed by another film.
Is that the one with Peter Ustinov playing Poirot?
I think so. Evil Under the Sun from 1982 is on after it. On BBC One, it's Escape to the Country, Ready, Steady, Cook and Money for Nothing. So it's not, it's actually quite insulting almost in a way that you've got these you're not cancelling these what are essentially reruns, like crap films, rubbish. Escape to the Country. Who's watching that on a Saturday afternoon? I mean, and also, it's the missing opportunity as well, because you've got live Heineken. You've got Heineken Cup rugby, which is Wasps versus Claremont on Channel 4. So you have an afternoon of rugby there lined up. You'd think the BBC would have taken advantage of it, but they've not. So there we are. But it is on iPlayer, so you can watch it live and watch it back afterwards. Let's talk about France-Scotland then. Now, I know a lot of other podcasts and other rugby outlets are doing their full Six Nations reviews. Our position on this, since we started the podcast, is always, if you do your review straight away after the last game, you don't get a chance to really talk about the last game. So we'd normally, unless we lose, in which case we'd want to talk about the last game as little as possible, we tend to talk about the last game, and then the week after we do our full tournament review. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that, and then we'll pull together our Lions squads and things as we are legally mandated to do at this time of the World Cup and Lions cycles. So Scotland, France. I'm going to save my negativity. I've got some negativity to talk about, and why we maybe should need to temper our excitement about that game. But I'll throw that. I don't know. I might throw that in towards the end. Iain, it was a good game.
Incredible game. I think even neutrals absolutely loved it. One of my pals in Ireland messaged me at the end. She was probably more excited than I was, because I was dying after helping John move flat. It was so exciting. Some excellent tries. You had the brilliant Pennell try, which just all sort of French flair, and then our winning try, which how many times have we seen Scotland drop the ball in that kind of position? But to go through 20 phases and then clinch it in the 85th minute, I think probably 84th or 85th. A phenomenal match. Some big performances from both sets of players individually, and then some poor ones. Brice Doolan, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it? I mean, that was almost a very Scottish thing to do, John.
Yes, I mean, I can't. Still, it's almost like that way of. It's almost taking such a shine off the Scottish win, and maybe that's the negativity we'll speak about. But yeah, it was peak Scotland, and I'd noticed that it's been shared on a few social media sites. The wiki page has had a Cammy Black effort put on it, where Bryce has been added, is suggesting he's now French Scottish, and that he's the third most popular person in Wales until he was guillotined after the Scotland game.
Maybe we should call him Bruce. Maybe Bruce is the right name for Bruce Doolan.
Bruce Doolan.
Bruce Doolan. Frabafeldi.
Yeah, it was an epic brain fart, wasn't it? I mean, what's he playing at?
But I think that this is where I come into it. I think one thing I would say, and we'll talk about the game and all the positives in it, is we have to look at that win in the context of what France had to do. Now, France had to go into that game knowing they had to win by, was it 22 points?
21.
21 points. So they have to win by 21 points plus get a try bonus point, I think. So the decisions France were making, they wouldn't have made it had they met. I mean, it's their own fault they didn't meet us in round 3 because they all went for waffles. But the decisions they were making were based on the fact that they knew they had to win the game by 21 points. So I think especially after the Doohan went over for the first try, you could see that they got desperate because they were chasing the championship. Rather than trying to win the game, they were trying to win the championship. And I wonder how much that played into Bruce Doolan's decision-making at the end, because the pressure of having to think, right, we're in the lead here, but do I need to take it up the pitch to try and get another score? Where does that put us in the final table? It doesn't get them 21 points further, but does it push them a little bit closer? Does it cement them into second? So there's all these little decisions. So I think as much as, Scotland played phenomenally well and all the stats show that Scotland dominated in terms of possession and territory, but I do think you have to view it in terms of France were trying to win a championship by 21 points. And so they weren't necessarily making the on-field decisions they would have done in normal circumstances. Is that just kind of the Scottish negativity coming through, John, or is it a legitimate point?
So I think we always have to treat those final matches in championships with a degree of caution, because inevitably there's always something a bit different about them. And as you rightly say, France had an objective to meet. Now, that probably doesn't change the fact that France, particularly in the first half, failed to turn up at the party. They absolutely pooped the bed with regards to turning up. And yeah, they ended up chasing it, and because Scotland were putting them under pressure, and Scotland were doing all the right things. And again, we'll talk about Chris Harris inevitably through the podcast, but he was putting the French under immense pressure, and every mistake, every time the ball gets knocked on, that's another 2, 3, 4 minutes away from them. And yeah, they have to be thinking about the championship. It's it'd be madness not to be. And I found it really disrespectful, actually, the way, much the same like Hogg mentioned in the press, that the way people were just talking about France turning up to win a championship and stuff like that, when Scotland have got the best defence in the Six Nations and have had for a couple of seasons now, and it was 21 points is an absolute scalping. So it was incredibly disrespectful, and you can say it was the French press saying that, but the players were saying it as well, and you could see from the performance on the park that they believed that, and at least in the first half. So yeah, it's not negative. France were overwhelmed by the pressure of what they were trying to do.
I think that's interesting. I think we'll probably touch on that in Hands in the Ruck. There's a lot of Scotland still being written off. I think maybe based on past fortunes, not just in terms of the France game, but in terms of other upcoming tours as well. Shall we talk about the Finn Russell red card a little bit, Iain? Now, I still think that he hit him on the chest and landed on Doolan's throat as he landed. But having said that, we can argue all day about where he hit him. You can't run into a player like that with your forearm, because the picture it gives to the referee is you've smashed somebody in the throat.
Yeah, when I was watching it again yesterday, I've paused it, tried to go to the freeze frame, and you can see it's quite hard to tell by the angle where, because you can see his elbow makes contact with Doolan's shoulder, but then you can't really see the angle of his forearm. If his arm's up, then he's potentially going to karate chop him in the throat. If it's lower down, then it's more sort of chest area, like the very tip of the chest. But yeah, he's sold a wee dummy, and then he's not had time to put his arm out fully, I don't think. Doolan's tackling, I've turned into Ben Skeen. His tackling technique left a fair bit to be desired, I thought. He's coming very high. If Finn Russell doesn't get his arm out the other end, they're going to end up smashing into each other like rotting stags. So, obviously, us being big Finn fanboys, I didn't want to see him getting red carded, but I don't think it's red card. And like you said, most of the damage seems to have done when he's fallen on him and then properly crushed his throat.
Yeah, I watched the game with the without the crowd sounds, and the sound you could hear Bruce Doolan kind of struggling for.
Oh no, Cammy's broken again.
I'm back again, man. I'm broken again.
Right.
I've got a complaint in with BT. We'll get this sorted. Don't worry.
Is that blame the moth? It was the moth that done it.
Yeah, the moth turned it off.
No, I was just saying you could hear Bruce Doolan struggling on the floor. So he definitely landed on him. But like you said, the tackle, he pretty much pulled him on top of him, really.
Yeah, and when we can't justify it because we're Finn fans, right? But ultimately by the letter of the law, yeah, right, red card, fair enough. I'm really disappointed in it. I think there's an element of trying to change players' behaviour, right? But I'm not going to go down the route of saying let the boys play. It's a contact sport, etc., etc. But there's two parties in every tackle, and we are approaching a place now where we have to start to be thinking about if players are going to go high like that, and then if we're going to allow the fend in any shape or form, frankly, right? So a handoff is a open palm to the face potentially, and then pushing someone to the ground with your hand. You could cause a lot of damage doing that. Therefore, do we need to be looking at that? How far do we want to go? I think there's the consistency element as well, in that you've seen probably 100 of those incidents through the Six Nations, including a certain little Welsh Torag, Mr. Williams, whose was worse than Finn Russell's, let's be completely honest, and wasn't even looked at. So a wee bit of consistency on that front. If you want to change players' behaviour, yeah, you have to have zero tolerance on it, but it has to be zero tolerance across the board. If you want to make it a safer sport, then you need to be talking about lowering the tackle height as well. So this idea of letting players go above the waist is, that's going to have to go.
Did you see Ben Kay's? Sorry to interrupt, Cammy, but did you see Ben Kay's tweet earlier today?
No.
He's written a 2-part tweet saying that. Wait, I've got it here, but I've accidentally swiped on to part 2. Over the last few weeks, I've become a firm believer that in the current shift in World Rugby approach to head contact, rewarding the choke tackle has to go. Encourages upright tackling, but more importantly, encourages ball carrier to dip head to ground more than should be needed. Ireland had success early on via England with choke tackle, and Billy V dips into contact. Bundyaki red carded. Also negatively impacts openness of game, as players' priority is definitely being able to get to ground rather than risk shaping body to offload and keep ball alive. So I think that quite interesting.
It's interesting, isn't it? That so everything below. I mean, it's like, I suppose it's the opposite of what you encourage teenagers to do, isn't it? Go below the waist.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Moving on.
We've got a comment from Ryan. Ryan says, as a Welshman, I know you three guys didn't win the tournament for us on Friday, but thank you anyway. Well, thank you very much,
welcome, Ryan. Yes, we did. We were there shouting on the boys. We did win the tournament.
I don't know how you'd ban the choke tackle. I'm trying to think how you'd. I suppose the only way to ban the choke tackle is to go for. Is to limit, like I said, the tackle then is only below the waist.
Yeah.
But then it completely takes away stripping the ball off somebody, doesn't it? Unless you kind of say, I suppose the referee would have to call that you were going for the ball and not the man. For a strip. So
you could have Wayne Barnes shouting strip, and then it would just be very awkward if somebody starts taking their top off or.
But wouldn't you have? I suppose if someone gets hold of the ball to strip, then you have to call maul immediately.
Well, that's it, yeah. But then there has to be something done about the maul as well, because you've got that situation, and as much as I love when Scotland do it, you've got that situation where it's funny how a maul collapses as soon as it's called a maul, and it's like. Should be a penalty. It should be a penalty all day, and it's the defending team is collapsing it and then lying on top. So it should be a penalty all day. And I think there's a lot of work to be done around the maul as a spectacle, because it's a bit of a throwback to a traditional forward-based game that isn't necessarily going to be drawing in the average punter. But it's maybe.
And it only happens. I mean, really, you only get proper maul off lineouts. anyway. These things that are called mauls in the middle of the result from choke tackles.
They're tackles, yeah.
I've never seen one that's resulted in a drive and maul. Every single one ends up with a scrum turnover.
Yeah, they never end up in a penalty the other way either. It's not like a maul from a line out. It almost always ends in a penalty to the attacking team, whereas the choke tackle maul never ends in that. It ends in everybody flopping on the ball, and hopefully you can see the ball, and inevitably a scrum half shouting at the referee that he's pointing between 7 players' legs that he can see the ball.
The other thing we should mention, we'll go through the individual performances in a minute. The way Scotland finished the match. Now, I know Bruce, our friend Bruce Doolan, who we've talked a lot about tonight, had a hand in that. But I don't think we've ever seen Scotland play with that much control in, after 80 minutes of a match has been played. But I was thinking, I can't think of a time when we've seen Scotland in the opposition 22 with 80 minutes on the clock. Normally we're either in our own 22 or our own half trying to win a game, as we were against Wales. We're not normally in that position. So it was refreshing, I think, to see Scotland kind of, and particularly Ali Price, who we'll talk about when we go through the players, but that control and the physicality right to the end, and just the patience as well. We haven't seen that from Scotland before.
Yeah, like I said earlier, to go through 20 phases, and this is one thing that's always bugged me with Scotland, is that when we get to that position, it was just constant picking goals, particularly against like Ireland or Irish club sides. Eventually you end up getting turned over because they're so good at defending. But Price varied it up. He, there was some great drives from like Xander Fagerson, who, what a shift he put in, by the way. Seeing as he played 74 minutes, I think Bergen only lasted 6 minutes before having to go off. Keble as well. But then there was one point Price is pointing, saying, "Oh, get round," and then he dishes it wide to Hogg in the other direction. And then once we've sucked a few of the French defenders in, you can see Intimac pointing to the left, like we need more people over here, and that's when Price goes, "All right, I'm going this way." And then Hastings throws that Finn Russell-esque pass.
Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. And then as soon as that landed in two hands, I was just like, you don't stop him from there. You can't. It's like physically impossible to stop Duhan van der Merwe that close to the line.
I think it's really interesting because you mentioned the forwards throughout that, and like I was watching the try back earlier on today, and it was Keble who stood out for me. There's a carry from Keble in the middle of that just generates all the forward momentum. It gets Scotland moving, and nobody, it's one of those small moments people tend not to mention. Yeah, it's like 5-6 meters, but the speed that he's taking the ball at, the amount of defenders he rumbles through, I thought he was fantastic when he came on as well. I thought it was another cracking performance from him. But it's just so good to see like a player taking the ball at pace and just committing a defence, like a really tired French defence. It's brilliant.
I'm trying to see how his stats seem to be Ollie Keble's stats. I want to make sure I've got this right. So, where have we got? I've got the stats open in front of me. So he played. Where's Ollie Keble? Ollie Keble. So he played 31 minutes, and he made 37 meters off 10 carries. Which is that's a hell of a shift. He's done more meters than he carried meters for more than a couple of the backs. He carried it for more than Sam Johnson did in 72 minutes.
Jeez.
More than Grant Gilchrist and Sam Skinner.
He's
more
very good.
More than George Turner as well.
He's a big bit of a boy. He takes some stopping. And yeah, like John said, I think I know exactly what he's talking about. Sort of, although it only looks like he's made like 2 meters, it's the fact that he's had, he brought in like I think 3 French defenders have had to commit to the tackle on the ruck, and that's taking them out. And then they're all who are sort of behind the play at the last ruck. They're having to rush back and try and get back into position.
It's just generate that quick ball for the scrum half, because his positioning on the place back as well is perfect. And it just generates that's the pace, and that's when Scotland start to come alive. And you can see, like, if you've got the wider angle, and you can see the backs starting to get excited at that point. Duhan's screaming for the ball at that point, and it's time to go.
I think he shouted it a couple of phases. He called it a couple of phases earlier, actually, when they showed a wide angle that there was space out there. But they pretty much went. I mean, they went line to line, pretty much in the space of about 3 minutes, I think, in that period. And France were competing for the ball, but they did really well to kind of. And Hamish Watson again, he was just everywhere. He was, in terms of the work that he does to kind of secure the ball with Jamie Ritchie as well. Really impressive. A couple of times that he, I think, kind of went in as the support drive and obviously took the French defender off their legs, which stops him from being able to compete for the ball, because then Wayne Barnes is shouting no hands. So it was, very strange to see Scotland in that position. I'd started off telling myself I was going to have a glass of wine while I watched it, and I woke up in the morning and there was the best part of a bottle gone. So that's how good a game it was. Yep. Should we go through we'll go through the team. We didn't do player ratings on the blog, but it's one of those games that's worth talking about, the individual performances. How do you want to do it? Do you want to start? Should we just go 15 down?
I may as well.
Oh, I go for it. Stuart Hogg.
8.
Captained well. Captained very well. Kicked beautifully. Looked like, again, maybe not his liveliest game with ball in hand, but just looked very composed.
Yeah, and there was that absolute, was it that kick as well? Oof.
Yeah.
Love the kick. So
really
I think it's fair. I mean, I think the captaincy suits him. I would say. I think I was a bit skeptical of having a fullback as captain. I still am skeptical about the practicalities of it in terms of when you have to talk to the referee, but it works, or it's working. He seems to have got more of a handle on it, and he's playing with a much calmer head, Iain.
Yeah, and I think he's very good at talking to the referee as well. He's very calm, measured tone, and you don't obviously hear all of it, but whatever you do hear, it's quite precise. He's like, I will check this, blah blah. Like I said, practicalities are maybe a little difficult, but he certainly seems to have, like you said, he's stopped go and try to do everything himself, and as well, I think he's really good at galvanising the squad. Now he seems to have done, they seem like a very tight knit group again, and I thought it was an absolutely lovely touch that he let Ryan Wilson lift, as he did with the Calcutta Cup when he had Cherry and Redpath lifting the Calcutta Cup, to have Ryan Wilson pick the hold the Lions trophy up with him. It was a lovely touch.
Yep. Darcy Graham.
6.
6?
Yeah.
Why are we going for 6? I would have said a 7.
6, borderline 7. Obviously he's stuck out in the wing, but a lot of the time I forget he's playing. I mean, he's obviously had some personal issues, which we won't divulge because he doesn't want them divulged. But I don't know. I'm worried he's stagnating a bit, or kinghorning, as we could maybe call it.
I don't think it's as bad as that, Iain. Come on.
I think the problem. I think the thing with Darcy is I think he does the hog thing. I think that, and he's still quite young. Remember that he draws in defenders when he gets hands on the ball, because he jinks and he runs. So he does draw in defenders. I still think defensively he's very good. I mean, I was looking at the stats. That thing of he's hit more defensive rucks than some forwards.
He's a feisty one.
He is a feisty one.
Just a flanker and a tiny winger's body.
I think he does all right. I think it's that thing with Darcy Graham is he kind of is people expect him to do something every time he gets on the ball. And I think part of the next stage of what he needs to do is to learn to make that work from a little bit more in the way that Hogg had to in his career. Is that people, opposition defences know what Darcy Graham's going to do now a little bit more. That he is a tricky runner. He's going to jink around them, and he does use that to draw in defenders, but maybe he needs to do it more, or maybe a couple of others, maybe a bit of a kicking game to him as well, so he can sit in the back three. But I think a 6 is harsher. I'd say a 7.
6.5 then.
John,
I'm gonna have to go 6.5. I think 6.5 is fair. I think it was a quiet game for him. He just hasn't necessarily been as busy as he could be, but it certainly wasn't a 6. Like Ross Ford was a
6. Chris Harris, 9.
9.9. 9 definitely. Sensational shift, especially defensively. You know, there's that crunching hit on Vakatawa, which is
loved it.
It's as well. He's had to
I
take
stood
that
up from the sofa with that. I gave him a standing ovation when he did that.
I mean, that's like Vakatawa is such a potent runner and threat. You know, it's like he thinks I have to hit him early before he gets a head of steam up, and he absolutely creamed him. As well as that, our good friend Bruce, as we're now calling him. There was a lovely kick from Russell, which Doolan, and the kick chase from Scotland was amazing as well. Benjamin Kaiser commented on it during the match. There's like 6 or 7 Scotland players chase him, and it's Harris that hits him. Harris gets him first, then Ritchie's in to win a penalty just a few metres right in front of the sticks. And then the tackle again, but he seemed to have it in for Doolan, didn't he? You know,
that covering tackle was just unbelievable. I mean, I think he's got a lot of pace. He doesn't look like he's quick, but he has got a hell of a lot of pace. I mean, to catch, he was turning round. He had to spin 360 to get back to do that covering tackle.
He's worked so hard to get across there as well, like so hard. And you know, you can see. So lots of fans have commented on Chris Harris and said, you know, you've heard people saying he's stealing a shirt, or what he's got nudies or Townsend, and you know, all the really derogatory things people have said about him. And you know, we've criticised him on here as well, so we're not innocent in that front, but we've tried to understand what it is he's bringing to the team. And if you want any indication of what he brings to the team, look at how much that meant to him on Friday night. His desire to physically dominate his opposition and to be everywhere was phenomenal. And you know, there's a reason he can cover wing as well. Yeah, he's quick. He is quick. He might not have like amazing attacking skills, but he is a phenomenal defender.
Yeah, we've got Dougie Lowe, friend of the podcast. So surely that game will finally silence the Harris doubters. I would hope so. I don't think it may do within Scotland. I'm not sure it's going to do outside of Scotland. Although we probably in Hands in the Ruck talk about some Lions stuff. But Chris Harris is currently with some bookmakers 10-1 to make the Lions squad, which is, I will say now, that is easy money, because given his versatility, that there's no way that Chris Harris is not going to be in the Lions squad if he's fit.
Slightly smaller squad though this time, isn't it? Or that's what the rumours are.
But then he can cover wing, and I think that's what's going to go in his favour. I think if he was purely an out-and-out 13, I'd agree with you. I think he's maybe stuck. I think the fact that he can cover, get this consistency, I think we'll probably see him there.
We said on the pod a couple of weeks ago that he was very much a Gatlin 13. He was very much in the kind of same vein as your JD2 sort of 13. You know, very defensively sound, very, very, very strong, well organised. Maybe not like doing much in attack, but didn't need to. Maybe the only thing lacking is a kicking game, but you know what? That's fine.
Martin Bell is asking which bookies. I'm not going to advertise gambling sites on here, Martin, but it's a fair bet that if you Google it, you'll find it.
We're not going to advertise them unless they pay us.
They pay us thousands of pounds.
I'm not going down that road again, guys. I've been there. It was, we're not.
We've demeaned ourselves enough by describing our male grooming habits. Promoting gambling sites on the podcast is a stretch too far. Unless they're willing to pay us lots and lots of money.
Yep.
Email podcast@scottishrugbyblog.co.uk.
Unpopular opinion. I'll be there.
Sam Johnson, 7.
7. Talking of kicking games, did you see his attempt at kick? That was Alex Dunbar against Ireland-esque. That was.
We talked about Scotland centres playing 12 who just for some reason it's like there's a hoodoo on the shirt that means you just cannot kick the ball.
Unless you're Cammy Redpath.
Aye, true, yeah.
I think that's the one thing. I mean, I thought Sam Johnson had a decent Six Nations. He's done all right, but it's a shame we didn't get to see more of Cammy Redpath, I think, this tournament, because after that he had such a good game against England. But Sam Johnson did okay. I don't think he's necessarily the 12 that Townsend's looking for, though.
Nah, maybe he's not really a playmaker. He can pass very well, as I've said quite a few times, but Redpath's. I mean, Johnson will charge at you. He's done a couple in the last couple of games he's played. There's been a couple of really good sort of just breaches right through the middle that he's done. But again, it's his he's defensive. He's a big, strong boy. He's very good defensively.
That set move off the line out that he got the ball for. I mean, he was almost through.
Yeah, whereas sort of Redpath, who's maybe got that wee bit more gas and a bit more of a step, he might have made it. But again, that's all ifs and buts. But no, another solid performance from Johnson. You know what you're getting with him. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and an all-round, a very just a solid, well-rounded player.
Yeah. Duhan. 8.
8. Yep.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
He got 2 tries.
Yeah.
He took them very well.
First one. Yeah. That wasn't a try. That should
took it well.
Karma has to even itself out at some point. You get them. You get some you don't.
Indeed. Maybe could have done better for the penalty try. His positioning was possibly a bit suspect. I thought Chris Patterson was a wee bit unfair in commentary. He said, he needs to bust a gut to get over there, and you see it in the replay. He is, but he's too far away.
Too far away to get stepped, but his positioning probably to start with isn't great. But you get Pernell's a cracking attacking player and does have a step to die for. So it's understandable.
And Duhan just did it back to him, right back to him at the end as well. So one each.
That's it. Aye, score draw, mate. Score draw.
I suspect Chris Patterson has never got into coaching because of that. I think it's probably because he is too harsh and too critical. And he knows he knows he's got that within him and doesn't want to subject players to it.
You mean Chris Patterson is the millennial Jim Telfer?
Yep. That's it. And he thinks he doesn't want to inflict that on other people, so he sticks to the corporate work. Although, have you seen it on the official podcast? He broadcasts from inside his car, and I can't decide whether or not he's had some sort of Alan Partridge-esque breakdown and is driven to Dundee in his bare feet to eat Toblerone because the lockdown's got to him, or whether or not his wife's kicked him out and he's sleeping in a lay-by outside of Gareth Shields.
It's a couple of bad investments.
If anyone's got any where's Dougie Donnelly or where's Chris Patterson?
Have you seen Chris Patterson recording the official Scottish Rugby podcast in his car outside of Gareth Shields? Get in touch, let us know.
What service station is he in today?
Have you served him a Toblerone?
See, I was joking with someone earlier on that I was trying to get someone to listen to this, and they were like, "Oh, I don't know much about rugby," and I was like, "Well, neither do we, to be fair." We end up talking about snacks more often than not. And it's like, okay, so Toblerone, here we go, guys.
So, Chris, if you do need help, blink. If Al Kellogg is keeping you prisoner in his car, that's it. Let us know. Blink twice. Let us know you're safe. Finn Russell.
7.
7 just.
6 probably, really, we have to be like decent enough game, solid, but he did get sent off.
Yeah, I suppose if they take the red card, given it's a red, I think probably does take it down to 6.
But there was 3 brilliant kicks he did. There was one at the very start, then there's one that gave Doolan such pressure that Harris snaffled him, and then in the second half when France are attacking, he drills a really nice one from inside his own 22, which Doolan picks up, returns, which Darcy Graham gets a hold on, and then by the time Doolan's kicked it back to Graham, we're 10 metres further up the pitch from when Russell kicked it, and then we win a penalty as well. He's not been the full box of tricks. What do people want from him? You know what I mean?
It's a 100% kicking rate as well for the game, which again is pretty vital when you're in these tight games with against a team like France. There was one kick I think was fairly speculative and didn't come off, but I don't think there wasn't anything else on at the time.
Yeah.
So.
Sort of rubber one out to the wing.
Yeah, but there was nothing else on at the time, and he was under pressure, so it wasn't necessarily a bad choice. If it'd come off, it would have been okay. But it wasn't a classic, Finn performance. But I think we also need to kind of just appreciate the times that he does have the quiet games and just keeps things running.
Well, that's it. It looked like one of those games that he was just going to kind of like you could see almost from the first few minutes that he was focused. Like really focused on it. It was game management and just making sure that we were playing in the right areas and stuff. So I think, it's you can tell sometimes with the way Finn sort of starts a game, you can tell what Finn you're going to get. And obviously we love all the Finns, but not everybody's quite a fan of the.
Yeah, I guess that's the new string to the bow is trying not to force things.
Yeah,
I think maybe a couple of years' time, or even a season ago, we'd have seen him try to do daft things over the top and trying to kind of almost take the game to the line himself every time. But I kind of almost wonder whether or not this the coronavirus and the time to heal that there has been between kind of the love triumvirate of Townsend, Hogg and Russell has brought them closer together almost. That there is that Russell now trusts in what Scotland are trying to do and buys into it. Therefore, he's happy just to kind of chuck it about a bit and trust those around them a wee bit more, Iain.
The time is a great healer. But Townsend, Hogg and Russell, you wouldn't say they're fiery characters. They're all quite calm, level-headed guys. Hogg's probably the one who shows the most sort of passionate displays. When he's celebrating, like his hair flopping about beautifully at the end of the game. But no, he's now playing at one of the biggest teams in the world, and he's growing as a player, as all players do, and he'll be. 2 years' time is probably when he'll be. Is he 28 just now? Something like that? 27, yep. 28. When he hits 30, he's going to just be, game maestro. He's going to be. Oh god, he's going to be like Johnny Sexton, good but better, because he's actually got more than just booting up in there.
Ali Price, who I think this game confirmed is better than Antoine Dupont. Finally, I'm proved right.
Hot take, Cammy. I love it.
But
yeah, he was
demonstrably so. He lasted 80 minutes.
Yep.
It kicked more meters off less kicks.
He was
carried more.
He was very good, wasn't he? And again, sort of, it's back to that. We always have this thing of you bring in players against Italy, and you say, "Oh, look, they looked amazing. Look how fast Scott Steele was. Look at this. Look at that. Ali Price a better player. Let's not."
Yeah, Ali Price very rarely nowadays flings balls about a metre over someone's head from the base of a rock when you're in good attacking position.
I thought that was one of his best games. There was only sort of. I've sometimes moaned about the length of time he's taken to. Well, not the length of time all the time. I'm not saying he's slow, like delivery, but a lot of time he's pointing at, he's shouting at the ref, like, "Oh look, no, he's cheating," and then we end up losing a penalty. I think there's only one instance of that. But every player's going to make one wee mistake in a game. But I think that was his only one. I think for scoring out of 10, 8.5.
Yeah.
Especially for that last passage of play.
There was the possible penalty try that they were looking at because Price is it Bruce Doolan again, wasn't it?
That was the penal one.
The penal one, yeah. But actually, if you watch it back, I think Price has two choices because if the ball bounces and Pennell catches it, and when Price makes his tackle, it's a legitimate tap tackle. That doesn't happen. But then if he doesn't tackle him, he makes it through the line. So it's a 50-50 shot. He can't see Price can't see what the ball's going to do from his position. So I think he has to make the tackle in that position because if Pennell catches it and he doesn't make the tackle, he's in for a score. So I don't think it was as bad a decision as people made out.
He had to do something. He was damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. I think we maybe dodged the bullet there.
Yeah,
but
I think it's only I think as Wayne Barnes explained at the time, it was a penalty try if it wasn't a try because he was playing advantage.
Yeah, and it was good that Barnes was really sensible with that because you can imagine, so let's for a moment extrapolate that out and say that it's Scotland v Wales in the same situation and we have a French referee. You guarantee that the French referee, we've got double jeopardy coming down, probably getting sin binned anyway. We're going to get penalty try. We're going to get, public execution as well, just to be sure. So it was good. Barnes, I thought Barnes had a really good game as well, which I don't always say about him because I find him really irritating with his pidgin French and he's talking to the mate.
That's a bit Guy Ritchie, isn't it? All right, Lukey, mate. All right, Matty, mate. How's it going, Barney? All right, these are lovely jubbly. Check if that's a knock on, would you, darling? Nice one.
Yeah. Ali Price was faster than Anton Dupont and his delivery from the base of the ruck as well. Just in terms of adding to my dossier that I'm compiling of why Ali Price is better than Anton Dupont. He was 5% quicker on delivery of ball on 0 to 3 seconds from the base of the ruck than Anton Dupont. So someone said a sheer poor Price box kick. Now we're talking about this poor Price. Richard Hawke says poor Price box kick led to one of the tries. Now I've watched this back and I don't think it was a bad box kick. I think the chase, the follow up chase, I think it might have been Darcy actually, wasn't that great, but the kick itself was decent. I thought it was probably the right option. But I think after a few phases they did score, but I don't think it was the box kick itself was the wrong decision. I'm just not sure that the chase was. This
was going to be one that come up in hands in the ruck for me actually, is people criticising so there's the consequence of what they're calling a bad box kick. Well, a bad box kick, like a bad line out throw, it's all about the constituent parts. And as you say, the chase wasn't good enough, right? So a box kick is only as good as the chase. And it was poor, but how far do you go before you start saying, okay, so a bad box kick cost us a try? No, it didn't. There was countless phases after that box kick, before there was a score made. Do we say, Stuart Hogg kicked the ball off really badly and France scored in the 26th minute, therefore Stuart Hogg's kickoff was bad and cost us a try? Shut up, I've obviously been flippant and being funny about it, but it really strikes as being a kind of, we have this unquenchable thirst to criticise our players as a group of fans, and I just don't understand it. It's really strange, and it's almost making me have an unquenchable desire to criticise our fans.
The back. Let's go. We'll do the scrum then backwards. So Nick Haining, I thought had a 7 of a game.
Yep,
he played really well. He plays better. Nick Haining's it's a weird one. He plays better when he starts for Scotland than he does coming off the bench.
Yeah, I think he plays better for Scotland than he does for Edinburgh as well. He's a solid lumpy boy, isn't he? He was taken into those monstrous French forwards and not taking a backward step.
Skittle on them, wasn't he?
He's a solid lad. Yes, I'd maybe not quite an 8, 7.5 him. He probably doesn't get around as much as Fagerson, but he's big. He's a bit bigger and a bit harder. Not the same Pat Fagerson's soft or anything, but
I think Fagerson gets through more tackles because Haining made 5, missed 1, but carried for 80 minutes off 80 meters off 13 carries.
It's pretty chunky, isn't it?
Yeah, which I think Fagerson normally gets through a lot more work tackle wise, but again, it's just they're asked. It's hard to tell because they're always asked to do different jobs in defence, aren't they? So,
tell you what, to go back to thinking of Fagerson, I think he needs to really start being very, very careful who he's carrying. If Finn Russell's getting a red card for what he done, Fagerson does that almost every carry. So he'll have to be very careful. Like if referees are starting to clamp down on that, he's going to have to probably think about his carrying technique as well.
Yeah. Hamish Watson. I mean, it's hard not to give him a 10.
Yes!
We can't do it though, because nobody gets a 10. Nobody gets a 10, but it's close.
Oh, come on, guys. You know you want to. Hand it out. Come on.
He didn't score a try. And so what else can we criticise Hamish Watson for in that game? He didn't score a try. He didn't solve world hunger.
Everyone's gone on about this. I think this might be hands in the Rocky when we'll talk about how he was described by idiots on Twitter. I'm very angry about that. When he got
called lightweight.
Yes, yeah. When he
we can talk about. Do you want to talk it now?
Yeah. There was Ugo Monye had tweeted that Hamish Watson's not a bad rugby player, is he, or something like that. And then it's like within a few replies, I'd seen 3 people saying that Hamish Watson's lightweight. I was like, what in the blue hell are you talking about? How can you say that Hamish Watson's lightweight? Oh, he does it. He carries 2 upright. I was like, yeah, and then he bounces off people and makes more. And the little build-up video you've made, Cammy, you see him, that famous one where he's bounced off like 3 Welsh players, Alan Wynne-Jones, Thomas Francis, it's Samson Lee, and then Hadley Parks, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Are you trying to tell me that Samson Lee and Alan Wynne-Jones aren't big guys? And then also that he's ragdolling Ross Moriarty about, and Ross Moriarty.
That other one where he lifted Ross Moriarty up in the air whilst carrying the ball and threw Ross Moriarty to the floor.
And he did the same to Antonio. Antonio's the heaviest man in the tournament, and he's just like, sit down, you, out my road. I'm Hamish Watson, I've got stuff to do. Absolutely.
I've got to get the messages in.
Yeah, he's been absolutely sensational in this tournament. I mean, we know how good he is, and for people to see he's lightweight is just madness.
I haven't seen an update on this, but Kevin Miller has run the numbers, and I think a couple of other people have done this too. And my understanding now is that Hamish Watson has made the most consecutive tackles of any player in Six Nations history. He missed one against Italy, but they've since revised the stats, and it's not been recorded as a missed tackle.
Excellent. So there we go. There's another Frenchman defeated because it's Francois Nally that was top of this.
So Hamish Watson. We need verification. We need official verification on that. I've got contact. I might ask to officially verify that. But
he doesn't carry like Tom Curry.
Thank the Lord above. He doesn't carry like Tom Curry.
Yeah. Tom Curry missed 11 tackles in the tournament. Hamish Watson missed none. I managed to find a wee meme generator. The Batman slapping Robin one, and I put stats in. He carried for more meters, missed less tackles.
Do you know that I only realised the other day that when we went to see Sale versus Glasgow, Tom Curry played in that game, and I have no recollection of that at all. That was the game Glasgow won 42-10, I think.
Yeah, it was one-way traffic. We absolutely demolished them.
I know.
I mean, he's a cracking player, but stop lying.
I think
The
just
numbers
the
of
English rugby fans getting excited about the fact they've actually got an open side, and they go, "Oh, he's as good as Ritchie McCaw."
Yeah, I saw that. Somebody.
As good as
That was a
Ritchie
Rugby
McCaw.
Pass article.
Can he play? Can he
We're
play
giving him-
bagpipes with the
We're
Wiggles?
giving him a rough time here, guys, but in comparison to the rest of the dross that England have served up this tournament, he's actually looked all right. Like, to give him...
I mean, he'd probably be behind Tom Gordon if he was Scottish in terms of our selections.
He'd be behind Ryan Wilson for covering him like his early days.
Yeah. Jamie Ritchie. I think the frustrating thing is I thought probably a 7-8 game, probably an 8.
Yeah, we'll go 7.5 again.
I think it's a shame. I think the thing with Jamie Ritchie is it's a shame he dropped off the pace a little bit in the autumn and got injured halfway through this season, because I actually think that he would have been in with a shot of the Lions if he'd had more of a consistent build up, because he was being talked about prior to the autumn, and then he didn't have a great autumn. He had a good game against England. Actually, I thought that in terms of that one turnover where he tackled the player, got up and got over the ball again, that's been his best game for Scotland for about a year.
Yeah, I think did he win 2 or 3 turnovers?
Yeah.
He won that penalty that we were talking about earlier. He's tackling solid. He's him and Watson just work so well together. Better than Curry and Underhill.
Yeah. And I think he gave away 1 penalty, I think. That's not bad given the work that he has to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's a gnarly back rower. You expect that.
Managed to get through without being punched by any French players. It's a bonus.
Well, I mean, some would say bonus, others would say, it adds to the ability for Scotland to destroy France. So,
Grant Gilchrist, I thought that was probably Grant Gilchrist's best game in a Scotland shirt. A solid 7.
I'd given him man of the match against France a couple of years ago at Murrayfield. He's perfect in the line out. He's great, absolutely dominant in the air. Had a couple of good carries. That was the sort of Gilchrist that we've always promised. But then he sometimes doesn't always deliver. But that was one of his, like you said, definitely one of his better or best games for Scotland. Oops, I've just absolutely slapped the table. That quite hurt. But yes, very good performance.
That's how good he was. Ian's slapping tables. The line out was really impressive. To give him his due, and you can see that's his speciality. That's he takes responsibility for that, and you'll note there wasn't any crazy calls like on our 5 meter line. It's pouring rain. Let's go and try and hit halfway with the ball and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the only mistake at the line, I think, was when Ryan Wilson had come on, and given the circumstances in which Ryan Wilson has come into the squad as a really last minute replacement, he's not been training with the squad at all, so he's had to come in and presumably learn the calls and stuff. It was inevitable that one was going to go wrong at some point.
Yeah.
And they soon sorted it out after, the next line out went fine after that. So Sam Skinner, again, thought he played okay, did all right. I think he's, in terms of the rucks, he hit quite a lot of rucks.
Yeah. Stripped the ball off the French, only about 10 metres from the line at one point as well.
Yeah,
I mean, they were just, they weren't dynamic or anything, but they were solid. And on a day like that, that's exactly what you need.
Yeah. Xander, 8. The scrum could have been stronger. I think the scrum was a little bit mixed, but around the park, he did a hell of a shift.
Yeah. Stepping in for that amount of time as well. The amount of time he was on the park, he just, magnificent.
Actually, see Well, I've heard a rumour about Xander, which I don't know if it's Xander Slander time.
Hang on, wait a minute. No, wait, no. I'm not letting you get away with this without doing this. Hang on, wait a minute. Xander Slander. There you go.
Excellent. So apparently, when it's the first scrum, he will deliberately drop it to see what the ref is doing, or see how the ref reacts to it. And also, but I actually think as well, like that first penalty he gave away, I think Cyril Bai is wheeling it. Actually, he's not driving straight, and you see the angle above. He's boring in a bit as well. I think Bai got away with that a couple of times. But yeah, the work rate around the pitch. That's what, when people keep going, oh, Neil should be playing because he's our best scrummager. No, because Neil doesn't add anywhere near as much as what Xander does. I mean, for a tight head prop who can play a full 80, at Pro 14 level, for him to play 74 minutes against France on a wet, heavy pitch shows that he has got incredible conditioning.
And that was this week's Xander Slander. I really hope he doesn't get injured so we can get all the loads of use out of that. George Turner, I thought, had a quiet game. It was good to see the lineup working well. He carried as well as he can do, but I thought it was 7.
Yeah, 7. The lineup was working well. He got about a bit, not nearly as dynamic as he has been, but there's maybe an element of, he's played a lot of rugby as well over the Six Nations, and the way he plays the game is physically attritional, shall we say.
Yeah, I'll talk about hookers a bit when we come on to the highlights from the bench in a minute, but Rory Sutherland, I thought, had a reasonable game. Again, another 7, I would have thought.
Yeah, just hope his injury's not too bad. Yeah, he's, everyone was, it was sort of same with Ritchie, Autumn Nations Cup, and after the last Six Nations, he was pretty much, everyone was penning him in on their line selections. He's maybe not been as destructive in the scrum. He's given away maybe a couple more penalties. But again, you can't fault him really. Yeah.
In terms of the pick of the bench, then we won't go through everybody on the bench. We've talked about Ollie Kebble already. The other person I want to talk about, Dave Cherry. Now it's weird, isn't it? Because Dave Cherry's had a hell of a Six Nations, even kind of scoring this game, and then he's going to be back to 4th choice for Scotland. And actually, I think it's a shame. I mean, I know he's 30, but you're going to have McAnally and Brown come in, but I do wonder whether or not he's, worth a look and worth keeping about.
I would certainly hope that he's jumped above Mike Valemsa in the pecking order at Edinburgh. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who's, he's had to sort of forge his own path. And he's coming. I think is he the first hooker or the first one in ages to score 3 tries in a Six Nations?
I think it's the first ever hooker to score 3 tries in Six Nations.
Yeah. He's reacted to the ball bouncing off Xander's back brilliantly. He's picked it up off his toes and then had the composure. Oh, there's a wee gap. I'll just burst through there if you don't mind. Yeah, I think he maybe had one dodgy arrow. He's a very good player.
And he's fast.
Yeah, he's very quick. And I think he's an actual hooker, not one of these back rows. Right, mate, do you want to maybe just try out with us?
Yeah. Martin Bell suggesting he could be a Lions bolter. Well, we don't. Who knows? Maybe.
That would be...
Stranger things have happened.
Stranger things have happened. But no, I thought Dave Cherry was very, very good as well.
The other one I want to mention before we move on is Adam Hastings off the bench. Now,
he's only on the team because he's there.
I thought he played exceptionally well, given that he came on and there was a massive gaping hole in defence because Finn Russell had gone off. Because he came on after the red card? Aye.
Yeah, he came on for Sam Johnson.
And it was essentially covering 10 and 12. And through that lovely floated pass. I think he had a couple of good. I thought he had a couple of good runs. He tried one kick and chase, which maybe wasn't on, but it almost came off. I mean, if that comes off, he's through.
I also think DuPont's obstructed him during that. John was saying there about Scottish rugby fans. There was an interesting little moment on the forum. I don't know if either of you guys saw it. Somebody was complaining about that kick and chase, and then some people were calling him out for it. And then he started PMing all of the admin team, like, I'm getting like horrendous abuse here. It's like, no, people are just telling you to stop complaining. And I looked through it all, and there wasn't anything bad at all. I mean, because obviously we take quite a firm stance on these kind of things, and nobody was being abusive to him at all.
I telling me he was wrong. 7 messages. I woke up with a hangover on Sunday morning to 7 messages, and I was very upset.
I think if you're going to post something on the internet, you've got to be prepared for people to disagree with you.
Definitely. Yeah.
But no, I thought Hastings had a good game. I thought it was, given he's not, he's come back from injury and played one game from Glasgow, got banned, and then come off the bench for France essentially.
I really worry about Hastings sometimes, particularly in defence. So it was good to see him go through a cameo appearance for Scotland and not try to decapitate anyone, because he's
a high shot king.
Mm-hmm. He is really bad for it. Really bad.
It's at least one a game.
I mean, he had the one for Glasgow. The last game he played for Glasgow was really shocking as well. Like, he's caught the guy around the neck, and like the guy's going at pace, and he sort of like dragged him back. It's one of those like,
I think it was Ashton Hewitt
moments. Yeah, it was, and like the legs have kept going, but the head stopped. He's just like, and he is quite. He does it quite often. It's quite bad. So it was good to see him showing his true talents in a Scotland shirt, throwing nice passes, taking ball to line, and just generally looking very composed.
Yep. I just want to give a quick word on our fantasy league. Say congratulations to David, who won it. He's been top of the league all the way through the fantasy league. Other noticeable, I think Alan McDonald did very well. He ended up in 12th, although he's down 9 places apparently this week. And I don't know where I'm way down because I forgot to do my team in the second week. I was doing okay.
Yeah,
Rory's in 45th.
I forgot to change the last 2 weeks.
I'm in 55th. Iain, you are... I can't even find you on this list.
Relegated.
Relegated. I'm down in the 98th now, and you're not there. No, that's not you. Coming down in the hundreds. I can't find you.
Bother.
I'll not bother you. Well, I think Rory won it for the pod, the blog.
Last 2 or 3 weeks, I just completely forgot to change stuff, or I just picked the wrong person. Like, I picked Gareth Davis, and he'd only play 50 minutes instead of DuPont, who'd score a try.
Nobody should ever pick Gareth Davis. Let's be honest. That's your issue there.
They were playing Italy.
Doesn't matter. Still a little. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on because we've talked about it. Let's do this. Yes, it's Hands in the Ruck time. Any other business section of the podcast, I'll give you a warning now. We're allowed to be walking hands in the ruck.
Yay!
That may be coming.
See, I've worn something especially because I thought we were maybe going to do legally mandated Lions chatting.
What have you got?
For those listening, Iain is stripping off on the
bottom. Oh, he's got his...
I got this free.
He's got free Lions top. That's what you say.
You got free Lions top?
You're traitor to the cause, Iain. Hey,
I bought a Warriors top for like the 2018. I think it was the 17-18 or 18-19 season. And it was Level Sports, and they were giving away free Lions tops. So
at one point you could buy them for £10 on M&M Direct Lions tops.
I'm always in,
excess Scotland, I think.
Excess Scotland's not good.
Yeah, I'm on the lookout for some new tops to train in. So if MD's got any tops they want to donate to me, do feel free.
I'll let you, Iain. Do you want to give me your hands in the ruck, and I'm just going to get the ones up we've had from Twitter and elsewhere.
It's mainly the Hamish Watson getting called a lightweight was one of them, and also because it is mainly sort of line, and I'm sorry for the line selection, but we have to now. It's getting close. The lack of people, the people who just are also just going, blaming, like going on about how Doohan's a defensive liability. Show me a winger who is an excellent defender. Right? I mean, the best one I could think of was Keith Earls. And we all know my feelings about Keith Earls. I've seen Johnny May getting stepped. I've seen him being out of position. People, especially back three players, I think a lot of people give back three players a lot of grief for not being good at tackling. What you have to remember is they've got people running at speed at them, and they're having to sort of backpedal. So I'm not a physicist, as you can probably guess, but there's lots of momentum and motion and all that. It's a hard job to tackle somebody. If somebody's running at you at like 20 miles an hour and you're backpedaling at 10, it's hard for you to tackle that person.
Yeah. Also, if the defense is drifting across and they're getting round you, you're often having to cross the pitch. We were talking about the cover and tackle that Doohan missed on. Was it Doolan?
I think it was Pennell.
Pennell.
And then Pennell gave it to Doolan.
Yeah. That he missed, but that's because he's having to cover across the pitch. So they've got a hell of a lot of distance to cover. So wingers more often than not are going to miss tackles. We've had a hands that is similar to Stuart Edgar on Twitter got in touch. He said, why is it that when a Scotland player makes a mistake, he's out of the Lions, but players from elsewhere are judged based on the good they do? Doohan missed a tackle that led to a try, but so has Zammit. Price got charged down by Itoje, but he did that in every game. Itoje could charge down in every game. And I think there is an element of that. I think there's going to be a lot of pundits very disappointed about the number of Scotland players in the Lions squad. I mean, maybe I'm disappointed, but I think there's a lot of. I think Scotland players are being judged harshly on the fact that we haven't had many Scottish Lions in the past. But I think if you're looking at cold, hard performance statistics and performances on the pitch, I think there's a lot of Scotland players who've put their hands up and should be ahead of a lot of England players.
Did you see Ultimate Rugby as well? They tweeted that Doohan beat 31 defenders in this tournament, topping the pile, and he set the record. Brian O'Driscoll, and he wasn't a bad rugby player, was he? He set the record in 2000 and with 30, and now Doohan's done 31.
Most meters in the tournament as well, 470. Second most after Bruce Doolan.
This podcast has become the Bruce Doolan appreciation.
Yeah, so he's top try scorer as well. 5.
Yeah, and as well, I've said people wingers don't. I think he only missed 3 tackles. Obviously, he's not made a lot of tackles because people don't want to go anywhere near him because they will get crushed. And
as we saw with the first try against France as well, he's people were saying, why aren't we using Doohan as an additional forward? Well, there you go.
Your wish is granted.
Yeah, you've got that utility back. That that Warren Gatland's looking for. You stick him in the front row, he'd be fine. John,
that's like RV Mark 56. The world's gone mad.
John, what's had its hands in your?
Oh yeah, I don't know if it's a positive or a negative or just an observation, but that idea of so Scotland finished 4th in the table, and realistically we were a few points here or there away from. Well, we were a few points 6. Away from a. Yeah, and it just shows how fine the margins are, and it was a real missed opportunity for Scotland. When we look back at this, we've talked about winning away in France, winning away in England, right? it shows the impact crowds actually have. And it was a different game. And Scotland handled the occasion really well. And I think there's something to be said for the way Scotland maybe generated their own. We talked a bit about the subs generating a bit of atmosphere and generating energy. I think Scotland could take that away from this. But I think, ultimately we still need to look with critical eyes on this. It was a good Six Nations for Scotland, but we probably would have accepted 3 wins before the tournament. How we came across those 3 wins were probably quite exceptional, and we need to now think about how we're going to move on from that and actually start to build a wee bit of consistency, because we should be beating Wales. Like, frankly, we should have been beating Wales this season. We should be beating Wales. We're a better team than them.
Yeah. And I think it's a yellow card. Was it a red card and a bounce of the ball, a different referee call at the end of the that for the Chris Harris turnover, and it's a different game. It's a different result.
Liam Williams pulling Hogg back off the ball, that would have given us a shot at goal to win the match. Yeah,
Chris Harris turned over the ball, but was called
off his feet.
Yeah. Bounce of a ball and all that. Roderick Mackay has said he's a late hands in the ruck. He's really hacked off and not being able to hear refs and TMOs because of havering speculation from some arrivals who are obviously not listening to the officials. I do like. I mean, Andrew Cott is one of the better ones for saying, let's have a listen to what the referee's saying here, and just letting that happen. I think particularly when you've not got the crowds, it's been much more interesting to kind of hear the ref. You've been able to hear a lot more over the ref mic. Rebecca Morgan also said she's at a dodgy camera angles and the lack of replays at important moments, which is i.e. that tackle. So I do, yeah.
That's the broadcaster's choice, that, isn't it?
It is the French broadcaster's choice. We will show you the most.
Have you got any more angles?
You can always see the TMO saying, "I'm struggling to get any more angles." In other words, the French producer's gone off for a fag because he's
delete. Oh no,
literally burning tape as we speak with his Siggy going, you will not see this.
There are no other angles. What about that camera? There's a cameraman there in the back of that. Because you not got an angle. You do not know who's this camera.
Burning it with a cigarette they bought off of Mohammed Huas.
Very good. My hands in the ruck. We talked about this in October when World Rugby banned or advised unions that should ban trans players from playing, trans women rugby players from playing women's rugby because of safety concerns. Now, in response to that, most unions, including the SIU and the RFU, said, no, we don't agree. We're going to go off and we're going to think about this and have a good, long, hard think about what to do. But for the minute, our current protocols remain in place, which for those that don't know or not up to date on this is that trans women who want to play women's rugby have to undergo, have to take medication to get the testosterone level down for a period of 12 months before they're allowed to play, and they have to get a medical certificate to say that they can do so. The RFU have come out today with their proposal, although I think it's official, I think it's been leaked to The Guardian, and have said that trans women who will be able to play rugby under the normal protocols in place for reducing testosterone levels, except where they are over 5'7" or 14 stone 2, at which point they will have a risk assessment by a coach. Now, there's a number of issues with this. I think, firstly, being assessed by a coach opens up all sorts of difficulties for player and coach, because you get a coach with a certain political view about this rather than a fair equality view on it, and you could easily skew somebody to say you're a risk. Secondly, I think the other thing is I kind of think it's insulting to women to say that if you're over 5'7" and you're over 14 stone 2, that you're a risk. Yeah. That you're not average somehow. That tall women. I think somebody tweeted today that said like 69 or 60% or something of the England women's team would be in breach, are over 5'7" and over 14 stone 2.
Is it and? Is it 5'7" and 14, or is it just or? Is it either or?
It's an either or, and would prompt the coaches. And I think that what they're just trying to overcome some of the objections that were put forward in the World Rugby. I'm not going to say it's a study because it wasn't really a study. It was a collection of people with certain skewed viewpoints towards excluding trans women from women's sport that were allowed to speak to World Rugby. But it's weird. I mean, the current the other thing in the Guardian was saying that I think English rugby have only ever had 59 applications from trans women to play rugby, and I don't know what the numbers are in Scotland. I mean, we know there are trans women players in Scotland who play women's rugby, but we're not talking, we're not talking massive numbers that you need to go and start reinventing the wheel or bringing in all these ridiculous arbitrary things that say that women should also be short and tiny.
Yeah, I doubt there's many props that are under 14. Was it 14 stone 2? 14
stone 2.
Why have they opted? Is it maybe from kilograms? But why specifically 14 stone 2?
I don't know. I don't know if they've just Googled average woman UK. That'll do, lads. We'll stick that in.
That'll appease everyone. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's such a silly situation, isn't it? And it's one of those ones you just wonder where are the actual brain processes? Where are the thoughts that are going into this, and who the hell is making such ridiculous decisions?
I mean, it's mad. I mean, if you look at the men's game, I mean, this is Johnny McGinty, friend of the pod. I had tweeted this out today. So Darcy Graham's 5'9" and 13 stone. Matteo Minozzi's 5'10" and 11.5 stone. Faf de Klerk is 5'7" and 12 stone. Are you saying that none of those players are allowed to go and play against bigger lads? Are we talking about bringing weight limits into rugby? Because if you're going to bring it into the women's game, then you have to bring it into all games.
Yep, you absolutely should. Yep, that's the thing. I mean, how far do you go with it?
Yeah. And maybe there is an argument that you bring weight limits into rugby to make it safer, but that shouldn't be the exclusion of all others.
Yes, there you go. There's a comment just arrived.
Yeah, Matt Simmons said, men are making the decision. That's exactly the issue. That's very
there
true,
you go,
Matt. Too many men making decisions about these things. So yeah. So hopefully, I would hope that the SRU doesn't propose to follow suit with this.
Well, we do have a habit of doing our own thing, both negatively and positively. So I'm sure
and getting in trouble off a World Rugby for it as well.
So we've
got the leading rugby doctor in the world in charge of these things. So hopefully he'll take a sensible view that means that rugby continues to be a sport for all in Scotland, rather than just a sport for some.
And seen as one of the big sort of World Rugby things is about inclusivity.
Yeah.
It's
weird. I mean, this is Trans Visibility Day.
Sizes.
This is Trans Visibility Day as well. So it's what a fantastic day for that to be leaked to the press.
Oh, jeez. Great optics yet again.
Yeah.
Hopefully
So watch this space for what happens with the SRU, but that's the RFU's plans. The SRU, I checked the website today, still said they're sticking to their current policy and are reviewing it, and will make an announcement on that page in due course. So watch this space. We'll discuss. We'll keep an eye out on that. That's it for this week. We've gone over the hour and 30 mark.
Can I just, seeing as we gave Wales a wee hand there winning the Six Nations, and if I can just quickly switch to the round ball sport, diolch to Gareth Bale for elbowing a racist in the face last night.
Aye, fair play.
Good man.
I like the fact he looked round and checked who it was. Is that the racist? Aye, right.
Swing this arm out here. There we go.
Yeah. So congratulations to him. That's it for this week. We will be back next week. Like I said, we'll have our full Six Nations review. We'll be looking back at Scotland women versus England. we'll do our Lions. We'll each choose our own Lions squads. I'm going to disappoint you all with my choice at 10. It's controversial.
What?
I
We
might
think
disappoint you even worse.
So that'll be out.
I might find you both and hunt you down.
Yeah, so that's going to be out on Tuesday. If you are in the if you're a Patreon, then I'm going to do find a way of doing a Patreon's amalgamated one. So you can I'll find some voting form. I'll just get you to all throw comments at me, and I'll average it out just to our Patreon's Lions 15. Alan McDonald suggesting that my Lions 10 is Dan Parks. He's somehow hacked my emails and my love journal. But don't forget to visit the blog, scottishrugbyblog.co.uk. Keep an eye on Twitter and the like for announcements of future podcasts. We think the next week's is going to go out on Tuesday because we're going to try and rope Rory in to join us as well for that. We might have a 4-way or a 5-way even if Al Kerr fancies jumping in as well. So exciting times.
Like in wrestling, it was the fatal 4-way, wasn't it? What was a 5? Did we ever do a 5?
No, they
What, like a cage match?
6, yeah, like elimination chamber.
6, yeah, 6-man brawl. So
We'll
we're going to have to come up with a title for a 5-man, a 5-way. So
Yeah, we'll see if that happens. We'll think of a suitable quintuplet.
yes, and that might have to go out on OnlyFans as well.
And on that note, it is goodbye from me and goodbye from John and Iain.
Night, folks.
Cheerio.